Hi. As part of our fall 2025 campaign to raise our store sales to a more sustainable level, we're sharing some thoughts about how you can get it at Quabbin Harvest, whether that's getting groceries or considering how a little store like ours is part of the important work of building a food system that can nurture the land, sustain local farms, and serve everyone fairly. Get it? In this installment, I want to talk about convenience and how we literally got hooked on it and why it can feel so hard to shop in a way that may be less convenient than shopping in a supermarket. One way to think about this is to think about the difference between shopping at our little store on Thursdays and shopping there on Saturdays. It's easy to love Quabbin Harvest on Thursdays. That's the day we get our delivery of bread and pastries from Rose 32 in Hardwick. The chai and the coffee are free, and it's usually busy and lively most of the day. A lot of people have gotten to know that the bread is ready by 1 o'clock. They've learned our schedule, and they know that if they want to make sure they want to get what they want, they have to come in the day it arrives or maybe the day later. A lot of people value the fact that we offer these incredibly high quality baked goods in our own area. You don't have to drive to Hardwick to get it because we have a volunteer who does that every week. And the fact that this is a family-owned bakery has passed along to a new generation is just a plus. It's a question with small businesses whether they sustain past the founder generation. And so we are thrilled that Glenn and Cindy have passed it along to Hannah and Henry. So Thursday's a good day at Quabbin Harvest. It's generally our biggest sales day of the week. It's the day you get a real sense of how this little grocery store serves as a kind of community hub and how it supports other small food businesses in our area, which is a big part of what our founding members hoped would happen when the co-op started in 2009. So that's Thursday. Saturday is often quite different. It can sometimes be a good sales day too, but it's also the day when we tend to run lower on some things, especially the things we sell a lot of, like coffee and ice cream and honey and syrup and meat. Usually the bread is all sold by then too. Some of those things will get restocked the next week, but Rose 32 doesn't come again till next Thursday. Some things don't come back right away, and especially if we're waiting to have enough free cash to reorder them. That's the cash flow crunch we've been in for the past couple of years, and that's what we're trying to get out of with this 15-week campaign. It's harder to love the store when you come in looking for something that's not there. We've been working on ways to encourage people to call ahead if there's something they particularly want. We're building on our older Shop Co-op First campaign just to remind people to wire their routes so that they come to see us first. And that's helpful for shoppers, but of course, it doesn't help our sales picture if what they're looking for is not there. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. How to support the store even if it's not giving you what you want in the moment. This was one of my own steepest learning curves when I first started shopping at the co-op. And I will admit that I still feel sometimes frustrated if I can't get something that I really want that's on my list, especially basic staple items. Even though I am now deeply in the conversation about how much we can or can't reorder. So I know the answer to these questions, but I still feel, why is there no rolled oats in the bulk bin this week, which is when I want to buy rolled oats. And what I've learned over the years and found helpful is to be more mindful of my own reactions in those moments. And because I'm someone who thinks in a fairly nerdy way about food system histories and grocery stores, it has also helped me that I've been able to put our little store in a much bigger context and recognize where my own response comes from and how it connects to that bigger picture. This is really about the kind of convenience and abundance and choice that we've literally gotten hooked on over the past more than a century now. It's not as new as it sometimes seems, to the point that we don't even notice how natural it feels to expect to buy whatever we want whenever we want it. And this is the thing that we're subconsciously, so that we've learned to expect, is this kind of incredible abundance, even overabundance. So even if we like to support smaller stores and local businesses and all of those things that I think a lot of us do around the co-op, we're used to this incredible abundance and choice and being able to get everything under one roof. This was the big supermarket innovation that a guy named Mike Cullen came up with in 1930 in Queens, with the first true supermarket. Then the goal was just to make it that you never had to go anywhere else. You could do it all under one roof. It's become more of a norm. It's become more of a necessity sometimes as people become busier and busier. But it's also gotten into our sense of expectation, and really entitlement to, like, I should be able to do this all in one place. Um, it's very different from how grocery shopping was before that. Even though there were chain groceries for a long time, you can see that those actually went back into the 19th century. But um, grocery stores really, even into my childhood in the 1960s, used to have a much smaller footprint. Things came and went a little more. We ate more in season in some ways. And some things were from big corporations and big vendors far away, but a lot more were from closer to home or from the region or even the local area. And the big thing was that people didn't always expect to be able to get everything in one shopping trip or to have every single item on the shelf every time they came in. That's what the supermarket, and especially the supermarket that picked up pace over the 20th century, has really taught us to expect. And we feel that that's what should be there. And that's where that frustration reaction comes from. I've been starting to tell people about Quabbin Harvest. We're the kind of store that your grandmother would have known how to shop in. She would not have found it frustrating. She would have recognized, stock up when it's there, adapt when it's not there. That those feelings would not have been there for our grandparents, people of my age. So it's not that we're trying to go backward here. We're actually trying to find a new way forward from where we are. Because I think most of us have a sense that the modern mainstream food system has some very deep flaws. And they include that one flip side of all that abundance and convenience is a huge amount of waste that we mostly don't see. It happens for a lot of reasons. That is another whole video series. But some of it is because supermarkets don't want to leave any gaps on their shelves because they've gotten us used to knowing that we can get everything we want when we want it. And they want to keep us coming back and not doing all of our shopping with them instead of getting frustrated and saying, well, fine, I'll go to Quabbin Harvest. Some of the surplus food gets rescued and redistributed, and that's good, but most of it doesn't. And that's a shameful fact about our food system in a society where there are also shamefully too many people who can't get the food they want and need. Another flaw is that the grocery sector overall, and this is just the supermarket piece of it, just keeps getting more and more consolidated in terms of who owns it. It's driven by very fierce competition and very low profit margins. Those two things are related. So it's dominated by this smaller number of larger and larger corporations. And that gives us actually less and less real choice. So, for example, two of the main supermarket chains in our area, Hannaford and Stop and Shop, are both owned by the same giant corporation called Ahold Delhaize, which that was a giant corporation in the Netherlands and a giant corporation in Belgium that joined to form an even more giant corporation and then came into the American market and started buying up regional chains here. And then the other thing is that those very long supply chains that undergird this whole system have a lot of links, and they're not terribly resilient or resistant to shocks. So things like wars, as we've seen with the war in Ukraine and the prices of wheat and bread, fuel prices, often volatile. That picture on the top left is not just the supply chain; it's what's called the cold chain. We think of the transportation in the system as being the most fossil fuel intensive. Actually, refrigeration is a bigger energy sink there. So that blue line is all the connections that you have to make to keep perishable foods cold, all the way from the apple tree to the supermarket. So, and then financial volatility within all of those things. And we saw that, of course, with the shortages that opened up very quickly in the gaps during the early COVID-19 pandemic. It wasn't a shortage of food. The food was all still being produced, but it was the supply chains fell apart because of labor and various other issues. We're not, as a small store, we're obviously not completely insulated from that, but we are somewhat. We are building different networks that are closer to home. They're more rooted in direct relationships. They're much more accountable in that way. And those shorter, more local, regional supply chains turned out to be a lot more robust and reliable during the COVID pandemic, which told us that we're building a smart resource here for present and future shocks. It's just that we're doing it within this mainstream system that is still standing. So that's the bigger picture, and to me, this really comes down to earth in our own internal reactions and expectations, and those have been shaped by a couple of generations now. This is not a 5 minute, thing that we're trying to unlearn and undo. But to make an alternative, my sense is part of it is doing this internal work. So. Loving Quabbin Harvest on Thursday, I think, is pretty easy. Loving it on Saturday takes a bit more effort and some learning and unlearning. And that's what's behind our newer tagline here. So get it at Quabbin Harvest. Find ways to get at least some things here, which might take a little more effort than getting it at the supermarket. But it helps keep the store here so we can do all the other things that we're trying to do, like supporting this network of small farms and small businesses in our area. So that's the second part. Be there for us so we can be there for you. It's a reminder that we are all in this together and we can't sustain this business unless enough people find ways to support it by shopping. So watch for the next video where we'll actually hear from some of our shoppers about how they do that. And thank you for watching and for supporting Quabbin.